The over-under win totals for the NFL season were finally released at a couple of the sports books, and now these are subject to change. We're going to show you the ones from Football Locks, but given a preseason injury or any type of major blow to a specific team, sometimes they get adjusted. Also, depending on how much money goes on certain sides, will also swing the line. But as of July 20th, these are the Vegas odds for, the Vegas numbers for the total amount of wins per team in the NFL going in. The trend you're going to see with that is no team has more than 11, or I should say more than 10.5.
Yeah. And
I don't think many teams have less than like 5 or 6.5. But really,
interesting.
They have the Panthers, the Packers, and I believe on the second card, the Patriots as being 3 of the 4, and the Seattle Seahawks and the Pittsburgh Steelers as being the only teams with 10 or more wins on the over-under.
Yeah.
Which makes sense given the fact that those seem like the 5 best teams heading into the NFL next year. What doesn't to me is, look, the Patriots don't have Tom Brady for 4 games. I get that, but there are multiple teams year in and year out that win 12, 13 games. Last year, it was week, 11 that the Panthers were ahead of their over-under win total?
Yeah.
I think it was week 8, actually, given the fact that no one thought the Panthers were going to be 8, 9, 10-0 come 8, 9, 10 weeks into the season. But let's go back to that first card because there's some interesting teams that stand out that I think are easy. The Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah. They went to the championship game last year. I mean, one game away. NFC championship game. And I think I was impressed with them throughout all last season. And as you mentioned there, like a lot of the time, it seems like they've been pretty generous with these offers in terms of some of their teams, but they're kind of underestimating teams like the Cardinals, who, for me, that looks like a good bet to bet the over. I mean, I think after seeing the way they performed last season, remind me of their first quarterback.
Carson Palmer. Their first game of the season comes against the Brady-less Patriots.
Yes, interesting.
On the road.
Yeah, I said that was the only game at the first 4 without Tom Brady that I think the Patriots will lose.
I want to get to that second card because there's a couple teams that I actually think are none of these are easy. I think that the Patriots will still win more than 10 games. I think that there's a good chance that they actually go 3-1 without Tom Brady. Then you get him back and you're, what do you need, 7 wins, 7.5 wins? The Vikings are another team that stand out. They won their division last year.
Strong defense and one simple name to mention in the offense. And
Adrian Peterson, Teddy Bridgewater has proved, at least through the eye test last year, that he's a competent quarterback who can throw the ball downfield. And they got guys like Stephon Diggs and some other receivers in that core that will make them potentially a lethal offense. Yeah. They do have the Packers in their division, who do have an Aaron Rodgers, but the thing I want to talk about the Packers is Mike McCarthy. Their over-under win total was 10.5. Is that correct?
Yeah.
10.5. Aaron Rodgers is capable of winning 12 games by himself.
Undoubtedly.
But what I think is, while the front office and the general manager of the Packers are some of the best, they have a lot of homegrown talent on that team. Mike McCarthy is the head coach of the Packers, in this very interesting position. Because how would you say, like, a guy that can win 10, 11, 12 games, get back to the playoffs year in and year out, always be contending for your division, be on the hot seat?
Yeah.
Mike McCarthy could be, possibly the reason that the Packers can't get over the hump and get back to the Super Bowl and win again.
If we throw it back to that card, there is 2 things that I'm curious to gauge your thoughts on, first of all. So we have reigning Super Bowl champs, the Denver Broncos, 9.5. Is that an accurate bet without Peyton Manning in there? I mean, this is a guy that threw 1 touchdown pass at home last season. And you're going to say that you think that they'll still under 9.5 or over 9.5?
I think it's a perfect line because I think it's 10 or 9 wins. I think their defense, we actually can slip in a little bit of Von Miller here. They paid Von Miller so much money that they lost, I think, 4 of their core guys, right? So Von Miller was the Super Bowl MVP, and during that playoff run, he was the difference maker.
Right.
He was Ray Lewis-esque in leading them to a Super Bowl. It wasn't Peyton Manning this time around. It wasn't Denarius Thomas. It was Von Miller. He was the captain of that defense. Okay. But they lost 4 or 5 of their core defensive players to keep one guy in Von Miller. I think a defense works as a unit with one guy in charge, but you still need that talent around them. Like Richard Sherman, Cam Chancellor, the Seattle Seahawks, Cliff Averill, all those guys together, when they won the Super Bowl, they lost a lot of those guys next year. Not Sherman or Chancellor specifically, but a few of the guys in the defensive line and I think 2 of their outside linebackers. So I think defense can get you very, very far, especially in the playoffs. I don't think without a steady quarterback, a guy who's an elite level player, even though you still have like Denarius Thomas on that team who can run downfield, catch ball, he's huge. Major threat. 9.5 is the exact line I would set.
Interesting.
So, but I would say give them the benefit of the doubt. Super Bowl champions, 10 wins.
Yeah.
But well, actually, my honest advice: don't touch the line.
So I wanted to throw to our EP, Dan. So the Dallas Cowboys were a train wreck last season. Tony Romo, a fit Tony Romo as we imagine.
Yes.
They have 9. Dan, thoughts?
9.
Well, I think based on the season that the Cowboys had last year, bumping them all the way up to 9 seems fairly aggressive. And basically what they're saying here is you should completely forget that last season ever happened, and you should just jump back to the season before when Dallas was a playoff team. You know, they're going to reestablish their run. Tony Romo is going to stay healthy, and then they're going to win more than 9 games. It's pretty aggressive. Tony Romo is still 36, 37 years old. So I don't know. I don't really like their defense that much. I mean, should they be able to get close to that number? Absolutely. I think I'd be hard-pressed to want to bet the over on that and expect them to just come out and win 10 games.
Could you bet the exact number?
Well, I think you can, but I think it's a push if you do.
It becomes a push.
Yeah.
So here's Tony Romo's quarterback record. So this is not the Cowboys record, just Tony Romo's quarterback record over the last 4 years. We'll go back 4 years. So he's going to be 36 this season, which is correct from Dan. Last year he was 3-1 before he got injured. Then 2014, 12-3. But then the 3 years prior to that, 8-7, 8-8, 8-8. So for the most,
it's just hard to rely on a guy who's consistently getting injured to not get injured. Mm-hmm. The other thing which I think is pretty interesting is they have the Redskins at 7.5. I mean, the Redskins won 9 games. They were on the up and up, and they won the division. I know. It's just very interesting. Basically, what they're saying is Dallas is better than the Redskins, and they're clearly going to beat them.
I think that's possibly bookmakers, the sharps, whatever you want to call them. They know the Cowboys are always going to get a lot of action in general because they're the Dallas Cowboys. They're the most valued franchise in the world.
You're totally correct. I mean, there's some public stuff in here. Again, like your point about the Vikings, why they're low. You know, they're below the Packers, even though they finished ahead of the Packers last year, is because the public likes the Packers more than the Vikings.
Right, that's true. Same with the Cowboys and the Redskins.
Same with the Cowboys and the Redskins. I'm kind of curious why the Cardinals are only 9.5 and not in that 10.5. That I agree with you. I'm not totally sure.
Could be a tough schedule.
Maybe they're going to adjust it now that they have a better chance of beating the Patriots in the first week. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting stuff on there. The other one, which if I was a bettor, I would probably go out there and do, is I feel like the Jacksonville Jaguars at 6 is maybe a little low.
Yeah, go up. 8-win team.
Yeah, I know nobody likes the Jags, and they haven't won for years, but they got a pretty good offense that's pretty solid. You know, they've been stockpiling these defensive players year after year. They have Dante Fowler, who didn't even play last year. They have Senderick Marks, who's going to come back. They got this guy Ramsey this year.
Yeah, they do have a legitimate team. I think another interesting one is the LA Rams.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that generous for them to have them at 8? Is it 8 wins? Bringing in a rookie quarterback.
They have everything is just like their defense is slightly above average. Their quarterback is a big question mark because it's Jared Goff coming in to run the offense. Todd Gurley is only 1 year. I don't think a sophomore slump comes out of Todd Gurley. I think he's going to have a magnificent season. But they also don't have a home. They don't have a home. Like, they're playing at the Coliseum. They're playing at the Coliseum, and there's a lot of fans here who I'm sure are happy the Rams are back. But in LA, I mean, come on. A lot of the people are going to go see them when the Giants come to town. All the New York sports fans will go. If the Patriots come to town, all the Boston sports fans go. If the Chicago, it's like the Chargers. It's an away game, always.
I think Francis is right about it being really about the quarterback. I mean, rookie quarterbacks in their first season don't tend to do that good.
Don't tend to win 8, 9, 10 games.
Yeah, look last year at Jameis Winston. Look at Marcus Mariota. They're just going to struggle at some point. And even the problem with that team is they've been the same way for years. They just can't seem to find that quarterback that complements the Gurleys and the defenses and allows Fisher to kind of push through. The other big problem is, they have the Seahawks and the Cardinals in their division.
Yeah, that's 4 games that they gotta.
They usually win. Maybe they'll squeeze one of those at best 2, but they'll probably go 1-3 in those 4 games.
Lastly, I want to see what are the Raiders that will be on the second card because I believe
7.5.
I believe in Derek Carr. Derek Carr. Derek David Booty. I believe in D. Carr running that offense. I really do, especially his yards per attempt and yards per completion numbers I think are there. Besides the fact is, do me a favor, people, look up training videos of Khalil Mack. I'm sorry, that's a guy who actually strikes fear into an opposing offense.
He's a truck.
I'm not sure if I've seen a freak athlete compare to that in the NFL in a long, long time.
Right, so what are any New York standouts for you?
The Giants, 8-8, we slip into the playoffs. Every year. Come on.
Sounds about right.
We do have a new coach,
Optimism.
which is good. We've spent a lot of money on the defense. We have 3.5 defensive linemen because one of them doesn't really have a hand. And we do have Odell Beckham Jr., Eli Manning. It's the Giants. We'll be 8-8 or 9-7, but they'll make it torturous because we'll always be like 2-3. Then we'll be like 3-3. Then maybe 4-3. And then 4-6. 6-6. That's just how it works. We need to slip into the playoffs. God forbid we ever go 13-3 in a regular season, at least in my lifetime. All right, that's all we got for you today. Francis, they can follow you on Twitter at Francis_Maxwell and on Instagram at Francis Maxwell Hoost and on Snapchat.
Oh, Snapchat plug.
At Franny Bahoy, B-H-O-Y.
Yeah, FRANNYBHOY1. Yes, don't ask me why that was my name, because when I first created Snapchat, here's the funny thing. I didn't think people were going to come and hang out with me.
They don't let you change it.
They don't let me change it. I was like, hey, can I change now to FrannyBoy1? They're like,
no, it's like a security purpose thing. Well, JasonR904 on Snapchat if you want to follow me over there. JasonRuben91 for both. So I need to change mine as well.
No.
For all the stuff on TYT Sports, it's in the description box below, at least for the YouTube stuff. Thanks for tuning in. Pluto audience, we'll see you next week.